I love co-op. Since I was very young, I love the idea and implementation of co-op games, or modes. I had many friends who enjoyed playing video games with me, but either didn't have the systems I had or didn't always have the time that I had. But when we hung out, we wanted to enjoy a game together, where we fought against the AI. Some of the most memorable of these games were ones with a good narrative that allowed you to have a buddy join you throughout the story mode. Many of the early Halo games and Time Splitters were two series that did this really well. There was something special about beating a game with a friend and experiencing that same great set piece. The generation of the Xbox 360 and PS3 provided many good modes to enjoy, with many coming from the Ubisoft games like Ghost Recon, Rainbow Six Vegas, or even Splinter Cell Conviction. And they all had really memorable co-op modes, especially Conviction, being able to have a co-op story mode that had a great twist at the end. Local co-op is hard to find within this current generation, but there are some gems, and many of them come from the indie market. Last year we had A Way Out, which was a more story-focused co-op game that saw you and your partner working together to get revenge on the guy that wronged you. I liked the characters, the story, and the music. On the more action side of things, Doorkicker's Action Squad provided one of the best co-op experiences of 2018 with solid action and a great 80s soundtrack. I bring all these games up to paint a picture for you that I really enjoy these types of games and modes. I usually like it when local co-op is included, as it brings me back to my childhood and it's something that I can always enjoy with my friends. At PAX East, I came across Rico, that was a first-person shooter that provided both online and offline co-op play. It caught my eye and I was interested. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you my review for Rico. Rico is a first-person shooter with co-op and roguelike elements. The gameplay consists of being within a building and clearing each room to complete your objectives. Clearing each room sort of acts like a mini action sequence. When you reach a door to another room, you can kick it open and slow-mo shoot every enemy you see in there. Oddly enough, this can be done with each room you come to and it doesn't get boring. You have access to several different types of weapons, from SMGs to pistols, shotguns, and assault rifles. The shotguns are some of my favorite to use when you're fighting because a lot of the fighting takes place in close proximity, and the range is also pretty good on them. The guns are mostly fun to fire. There's some decent punch to them with cartoony blood splatter and how enemies will react when they go down. The enemies come in some variety themselves, with some rushers, normal gun type enemies with some more armored ones. The rushers make very comical S&M yells whenever you get around them. Usually the main objective is to collect evidence, but the levels may add some on the fly or provide additional ones for more variety. Some include destroying assets, disarming bombs, killing a particular target, and a few others. Some optional tasks are given within the level, like meleeing a certain amount of enemies, or being able to get a certain amount of headshots. I did enjoy that some optional objectives would pop up as you are exploring, so sometimes you didn't know if a level would unexpectedly surprise you with a new task to complete. The main one you would need to be concerned with is defusing bombs. If you can't disarm the set amount of bombs within the time limit, then you will die, and this can add another layer of intensity to the levels. I do like how they would suddenly pop up and require you to reassess what you were currently doing to be able to defuse everything. The problem with disarming the bombs is that the later levels do feel like they just don't give you enough time to find the bombs. The game does tell you which floor the bombs are on, but they don't tell you where on the floor the bombs are, and this may require you to clear many rooms to find those bombs. The timer for these levels just feels just a bit too short and unfair, resulting in some frustrating deaths. This is an area that I do think a patch could come in and help out and be able to make the bomb situations maintain that urgency and then make them more manageable for the player. Playing in co-op does make the action that much better. You have more options available to you with a buddy. You can decide to stick close to each other or try to divide and conquer the level. Some communication is needed when you're trying to get close to the end of the level, as the enemies like to come in and continually try to hunt you down until you get to the exit. One small touch was how the game felt a bit old school in how it does your health regeneration. You need to rely on med kits throughout the level along with buying armor. Your health just doesn't regenerate like in most modern shooters. You can buy a shot of adrenaline to revive yourself or a buddy if you get downed. I did like that you can use these on yourself, so if you're playing by yourself, you're not just, if you get caught off guard and get taken out, you can get back up and get a second chance. To clarify, Rico puts the focus of its game on the gameplay. There is one initial cutscene and it does a decent job of setting up what you'll be fighting and what the game is about, but other than that, the game doesn't really focus on story.
Organised crime since Prohibition. While the police have been tackling the symptoms of this problem, the heads of the criminal syndicates that run this town have been allowed free rein to build their empires and their wealth. The Rico Act was passed in 1970 to strip the mob bosses of their thin veneer of respectability. But prosecutions are rare and take time. In today's world, time is not a luxury that we possess.
The game is broken up into 3 modes. The main mode is a case mode. Here you will choose a few levels and the goal is to get to the main bad guy at the end. When you complete objectives and levels, you will be rewarded with merits. Merits can be used to buy better guns and attachments for your weapons. What you can buy is always random, so in some cases it might be worth saving your merits for items in a later level than using them right away. Since your health does not regenerate without medkits, this is something else that you'll need to spend merits on to be able to go into the next level at full strength. Level completions will net you with experience points that will provide you with different attachable perks to give you more advantages. If you die during the case mode, then you will lose all your items and need to rebuy them all over when you start a new case. What you earned with your experience points though, those will stay with you, and any guns that you bought within case mode will be available to other modes. Case mode really is the main mode here. The game has some roguelike elements and it keeps the action interesting. The levels are rather short and brisk, so this is fun to play on the Switch while on the go. Losing all your equipment is rather frustrating, which is why I like that you're continually earning XP through the different cases to get better perks. The other 2 modes are more like additional modes with an instant action and a horde mode. I do wish the horde mode had a bit more going on, as it felt very basic, and as a fan of endurance modes, I wish there were more options here. Now, while I did enjoy most of my time with the game, I did identify a few flaws throughout my experience. One noticeable one is the frame rate on the Switch release. The game can get a bit choppy within certain levels while playing in split screen. I couldn't really figure out what would point to the game really causing lag, but it would be random and annoying. I found that there was a lot less lag in single player and only a few instances of it popping up in undocked play. I do hope future patches can iron this out, as it's annoying when it happens because it could result in you potentially taking damage that you could have avoided. I also played the game on the PS4 and I had a better experience there. There were very few moments of stuttering, and for the most part, it ran a lot better than the Switch. The aiming is another area that felt off with my time with it. Do not be surprised if you need to play with the sensitivity to find a nice sweet spot for aiming. I found better aiming by putting the sensitivity in the mid-20s, but the aiming never felt perfect. This is another area that I do feel like was a bit better on the PS4 than on the Switch version. I do like the idea of kicking down doors and taking out enemies in slow-mo, but I think the game could have benefited from having more options to breach a room. You can kick down doors or slide into them to be able to go into a room. Both are fun to do, especially with sliding, making it really playing up its arcade setting. But I also think like options being able to set up breaching charges or maybe even a sledgehammer could have been fun. There will be instances of you potentially seeing bodies popping through walls and even the bodies going nuts when they die and get stuck in walls. I did find it funny to melee some of these enemies that would stick out from the walls. This is more so annoying and noticeable and kind of funny, but doesn't really hurt the experience. Now this next potential improvement is going to sound a bit odd, but I think this game could use a soundtrack. The main menu has a theme, but for the in-game levels, they don't have music playing within them. Considering the arcadey tone, I think the experience would have been enhanced with a soundtrack that helped to add more punch to the action. I could understand that the music could be distracting if this game was more tactical, but Rico is more arcadey and less Rainbow Six Siege. I am going to show you a clip of some gameplay, as it is within the game, and then the same clip again, but I'm going to add some music to it. I know this seems like a small thing, but I think a good but present soundtrack would have only enhanced the experience. Another area that would have provided more punch to the action is the impact of the weapons themselves. Shooting people is fun, but I think having more effects to the shooting would have been great. There is blood, but dismemberment really would have added more to this experience. Lastly, I do want to mention disarming bombs again, especially how this area is something that needs attention for future patches. I completely understand having a permanent death within the case mode, that's fine, but the time it takes to disarm bombs needs to be more balanced so it feels less cheap and at the same time something that you can manage. I think it would be less annoying if you got a continue or two, but as it stands you lose everything. And as I said before, I hope they fix this area. While I listed a lot of flaws here, I did have a great amount of fun with Rico. Rico definitely put me in a nostalgic mood. I enjoyed the arcadey feel with the option to play the game in local co-op. This is something I wish was in more games. Rico does a pretty good job of providing a fun shooter that is both fun by yourself but better with friends. Rico isn't without its flaws, but with the worst one being one that I think they could refine in patches in future updates. As it stands, this is an enjoyable game that's great co-op fun. For anyone looking for a fun co-op title, I would highly recommend this one. For everyone else, wait for a sale.